Hey everybody, it's the first week in June, and it's actually been about 3 weeks, I think, at least, since I attended the Quabog Valley Engineer Association's flea market and tractor show, or tractor show and swap meet. So they have 3 shows a year. They have a spring show, and then they have a summer show in July, and then they have a fall show in October. And so once you've attended the fall show in October, pretty much you go cold turkey and get a little bit of cabin fever, and you look forward to that spring show. Well, last year, I think it was the spring show that got rained out real bad. I ended up going anyways, but a lot of vendors didn't show up, and the vendors that were there didn't want to take out their stuff. You can understand that. So, as I recall, it was pretty slim pickings at that show. But this year, it was rain again, only luckily the rain kind of moved out pretty early in the day. Still was some apprehension there amongst some of the dealers as far as what they wanted to bring out, and I think some of them just thought the weekend was going to be a loss because there were a lot of empty spots. That and this, I think, is only the second year since they've instituted a new policy regarding, I don't know if they've gone up on their fees for the vendors, but they have gone up on their fees for entry. It used to be they charged you one low fee, I think it was like $10 for a car load or something like that. Or pretty much it was like the kids were free. And now, unfortunately, they've gone to a per person, and they're charging for kids too. I think you might get a discount under a certain age. Make a long story short, you see a lot less dads with their sons walking around, which is a shame. Including myself. I think last year I did bring, well, actually last year I brought my 12-year-old, well, he was 11 then, I brought my 11-year-old Aiden. This year I brought my 14-year-old Peter. And we actually had a good time, and there wasn't a lot to see, again, because of the threat of rain. There weren't a lot of tractors on display. But we did attend the swap meet. We got there extra early. 8 a.m. is the official start time. It seems like they just pretty much, as soon as people start setting up, you can pay to park and walk in. So I'm learning that it's like you gotta get there earlier and earlier if you want to scoop the best deals. So I got there, and we got there extra early. And we went down the rows really quick. A lot of dealers hadn't even set their stuff out yet, and I zeroed in on a large fan. And for those of you who have seen all of my previous videos, you know that I scooped a really great deal on a fan, one of those big industrial floor fans. And eventually I'm going to get that probably down here in the shop. Right now it's in unheated storage, so I'm not too thrilled about that, but that's another story. And so lo and behold, I come along and I see another one of these fans, only this one is more of an antique. And it's got some, you know, it's a little rough around the edges and everything. But when I asked the guy how much he wanted for it, he said $30. And I was like, wow. I said, geez, you know, if I needed another one, I'd scoop it in a second. And long story short, I decided in the end, it was just such a good deal, I decided to pay the $30 before it started to get busy and I knew it would be gone. I asked him if I could leave it there while I looked around, and I said I'll come back later for it with the truck, because you can leave your parking area and drive around and drive in if you've got to pick something up large where the vendors are. I'll show you guys that probably at the end of this video series, because I got to go outside to take a look at that, and it's raining. I want to try and maybe speed up the format here a little bit. I don't know, I get kind of in these conversations and things kind of drag along, but as far as like showing the stuff, I want to try and bang this out a little bit quicker so they don't have to have multiple videos for one swap meet. And I also want to try and keep those videos short. So, alright, without further ado, let's dive right in. I got it all piled up here for the most part, except for, like I said, I think the fan. And I've made some notes here, so hopefully we can bang this out fairly quickly. Alright, so this wasn't the first item that I bought at the show, but let's just get this out of the way because it's in my way. And actually the item behind it, these two items I bought together, There was a gentleman who brought in a big trailer, flatbed trailer that he was towing behind his pickup truck, and it was loaded with all kinds of old junk. And I mean, there was a lot of junk on there. But I was weeding through the items, and lo and behold, I came across this study rest. He actually had two of them there. There was a smaller one that looked much earlier, and nothing on that looked familiar to me. And then there was this one, and when I spotted this one, at first I thought, well, you know, I don't want to bother with a study rest that I can't use. I could tell just by the size of it, it's too small for my lathes. But then I thought about it, and I was like, well, you know, the smaller ones, smaller lathes tend to be more popular with the do-it-yourself hobby crowd. So this might actually be a welcome addition to somebody's lathe. And, you know, it's roughly from the center point here of the V-way to the flat over here to like the center point of the flat. It's roughly about 6.5 inches. And then more importantly, from roughly the center of this hole to, let's say, roughly to the top here. Yeah, so it's around 6.5 inches from here to here. If you need a study rest for your lathe, if you buy a lathe and it doesn't have a study rest with it and you want to go and get one later, oftentimes they can be pretty expensive. Some of these study rests, I've even seen them sell for close to what's, you know, probably half of what they paid for a lathe. It's a nice cast iron study rest. Looks like it's in decent condition. I have absolutely no idea on the maker, but this is something that I might just do a little research on to see if just by the shape and the look of it, whether or not I can kind of ID it. And this would be something I'll probably end up going on eBay and maybe making somebody very happy. I don't know. The jaws are all there. They're not the roller type, but they're not all beat to hell either. Somewhere under all this dirt and everything and grime, there might even be a casting number or something. I would doubt that there's any name on it. These usually don't have anything on it for markings other than maybe a number. Give you a look at the other end of it here. This might jog somebody's memory. This is a kind of unique, to me, it seems like this might be a unique feature, the way this is shaped. So that might actually help somebody identify this. So if any of you guys have an idea what this might be, please leave something in the comments. Probably be a while before I get around to listing it. What I hate about something like this is it's such a pain in the butt to ship something like this. So that's why, that's the only drawback to something like this as far as I'm concerned. But and it looks like there's some remnants of maybe some black paint on here. I'm not sure. But I ended up getting this study rest, which I didn't even want, but I couldn't refuse when he threw me a price and I threw him back my low ball offer. And what I did was I paired it with another piece of iron that he had there. Take a look at this gear reduction unit. And yeah, it's dirty, it's grimy, it's heavy, kind of. Had this sitting there on the thing, and I said, well, I said, what are you going to get for this? The next thing you know, I'm walking out of there with this and the study rest for 10 bucks. So I'm into each one of these for $5. I mean, how can you go wrong? This one is a Windsmith. Can't quite make out what this says. I think it says Springvale, maybe, or something. Erie County, New York. And this is a Windsmith speed reducer. And I can't quite see the reduction or the model number or any of that stuff. Yeah, with a magnifier I could probably make it out, but I'm not that interested in it. When I get down to the nitty gritty and decide that I need one of these and consider using it for something, then I'll be more concerned with that. I've got one or two of these. This is one that I just happen to have that I had bought, I think at an estate sale. Yeah, I bought this at the estate sale that I picked up that nice Toolcraft sander, and this one's in really good shape. This is a Boston Gear, which is a well-known company. So this is a little bit bigger, beefier unit. But if you wanted to buy one of these brand new, they're very, very expensive.
So I think $5 was a heck of a deal for this, even though it might sit here for a while before I figure out what I'm going to use it for. So the first purchase I actually did make there was out of another vendor, and he didn't have a lot of machinist items, but he had down the end he had a tray with a bunch of stuff in it. I started weeding through the tray, and I started pulling out a couple items, and then I was like, I wasn't really attached to any of these items in particular, and then finally I was just like, we went back and forth, and we ended up agreeing on $4 for these 3 items. Pretty good deal. Got some rust on it here, sure, but you know what? These are LSS, Athol, Massachusetts. So these are early Starrett calipers. They're both marked LSS, Athol, Mass. They're both marked patented. I think they're actually patented the same date. This one's patented June 6th, 1885, and these are patented June 2nd, 1885. And the other thing that's interesting to me about them is I know that these probably came out of the same toolbox because they're both stamped with a VJL. And at first, I thought, well, maybe that was something unique to Starrett. But I actually think, no, I think somebody actually had a fancy stamp made up so they could mark their tools, because it's a VJL and it's in a little like shield. So I don't know. Either that or that could be a company, I guess. It could be VJL, might have been a manufacturer. And then here's a sweet little tap wrench. Again, got a little bit of rust on it, but it's not horrendously rusty. Still actually overall pretty good shape. And again, the key here, the deal closer for me, this is also an LSS company. And this is a number 91B. So this is an LSS company 91B. So again, that's an early Starrett tap wrench. And it's actually still nice and smooth. It's a nice little tap wrench. $4 for those 3. That was a no-brainer. Throughout the morning and throughout the, well, actually almost up to noontime, I kept going back and forth down the rows because dealers kept bringing more stuff out as the morning wore on. So I knew I had to keep going back because more stuff might come out. And in the case of the guy with the flatbed trailer, he had so much junk and everything, he had him pull some of it out, and some of it was just quite frankly kind of buried, I think. And some of it I had seen initially and then kind of passed on, but as the pickings were kind of slim elsewhere, I kept going back there and asking and inquiring. And I saw this. The boxes, unfortunately, the box is broken over here. There's a this piece here. You can see this is the joinery work on this box is kind of nice. It's I think what do they call that? Is that called finger joinery? Clearly it's oak. So this piece here is completely missing. But what's inside here, that obviously doesn't belong in there. What's inside here, along with a bunch of sawdust and crap, is an early, this says apparently F. Armstrong, Bridgeport, Connecticut. This is an early die. So you got these jaws that you replace depending on what size thread you want to cut. And the handles are in here, both handles. This is apparently a number 2. Okay. These adapters, I think they go in here. See, there's one in there now. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the one that's in there, there's six of these adapters, and looks like there's 10 of these, so there should probably be 2 for each. Should be 5 pair, I believe there are. But I've actually, I think, seen people use these and repurpose these for chasing threads on a lathe by putting these in a holder. So I've also seen these kind of these being sold on eBay for kind of a lot of money. So I you know, again, this is one of those things. I really wasn't that attached to this thing, but when we got down to brass tacks, as I like to say, as I like saying very arcane things, I got down to brass tacks. I got this set with this for $10. So I got this whole set for $5, and then I got this for $5, which I missed this the first time I went by this guy's table. And then I'm standing there looking at stuff, and this guy next to me, he picks this up and he's looking at it, and he says, oh, he makes a comment about it or something. And then I was like, oh, geez, I missed that. And much to my delight, the guy ended up putting this back down on the table and walking away. He ended up moving on down the road. So I snagged this thing up, because I didn't even need to look at the name on it. I took one look at it and realized, hey, that's a scraper. That's a scraper. And I was like, I know that these can be expensive. Well, much to my delight, not only is it a scraper, but it is a Anderson Brothers Manufacturing Company, Rockford, Illinois. This is a patent date December 4th, 1923. This is used for hand scraping in precision ways on machines and things like that. And I'm not sure, but I think typically this blade right here might be carbide. So you can actually, there's a way to tap this thing, and then that piece of that cutter right there can be removed and replaced. Believe it or not, I think I even, when I was looking on eBay to try and get an idea what this value was, I think I even saw somebody had a pack of new cutters for this, and they wanted a pretty penny for them, because they were new old stock cutters. But that's a pretty cool thing, and I don't know. I have kind of mixed feelings about what I want to do with this. Part of me wants to just flip it on eBay and make myself probably 6 to 10 times what I paid for it. But part of me wants to hold on to it and see whether or not at some point down the road I want to get into some scraping. You know, scraping's all the rage now all of a sudden all over YouTube. Of course, Keith Rucker's got that big giant shop of his now, and apparently he's even now hosting scraping classes. You know, it's not cheap, but then again, you know, the alternative is you can, if you don't want to learn how to, you don't want to take a scraping class, well, you could hire a guy to come in and scrape down the ways on your lathe, but you're going to pay big money for that. So it's just kind of neat that there's almost a resurgence of popularity in the art of scraping. So anyways, I'm supposed to keep this video short, and look at me rambling on about scraping. Crap.